Game week preparation continues for Tennessee and Virginia. Is the Virginia defensive front a whole lot better than we think they are? That and a whole lot more. It's your Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, and we are just a couple days away until it's football time in Tennessee. I'm your host, Eric Kane. This is Locked On Vols. It is your team every single day. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out everydayers for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. All right, we got a fun show coming up today. A lot of good stuff from Tuesday's media availability. Jerry Mack on the Virginia defense, Brian Jean-Marie on the Virginia offense, Amari Thomas, Ramel Keaton on some of the things that Virginia likes to do that they picked up on in film studies. So we're going to get into that here in a matter of seconds. Ward Wednesday coming up in segment 2. Position preview. We'll take a look at the linebackers in segment number 3. And this episode is brought to you in part by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's get into it. So, I'll have my official Virginia preview. That'll be on Friday's show. But I will say this, the strength of the football team for Virginia, it's in that defensive front. They returned their entire front seven minus leading tackler Nick Johnson from last season. He was a really good player, but they returned an awful lot of players, really nice players like Chico Bennett off the edge. His availability very much in question. He's been banged up during fall camp, but he had 8 sacks a season ago, and he's not the only one that had a habit of getting back there for the quarterback. So you have a defense that returns a lot, ultra aggressive, and it's something that they were kind of middle of the road or middle of the pack in the ACC in terms of total defense a season ago. Plus, they're looking to take another step just like Tennessee's defense is. Jerry Mack was asked about the defensive front for Virginia, how his running backs will be tasked with pass protection, trying to defend that on Saturday. And he had a really good answer, kind of breaking down that Virginia defensive line and really that front seven overall. Here's Tennessee running backs coach Jerry Mack from Tuesday's media availability.
Really impressed with how hard those guys play. One thing about University of Virginia, what you can tell is they were in a lot of games last year. You see the record and people just assume that they were not a very good football team. But there were spots and there were times where they showed flashes, especially in their front defensively. A lot of movement up front, a lot of stemming. They got really good defensive ends that do a good job pressing the pocket. So that's going to be really important for us to make sure that before we get out, we make sure there's no extra trash hanging around the quarterback's feet or hanging around the quarterback for his vision. We're going to do a great job of blunting things up, as we use the term, before we get out and actually in our pass route. At the second level, at the linebacker position, man, those guys move around, they fly around. We're going to see some different bodies probably than we saw on film in some certain spots, but I think the athletic ability is still there.
So again, athletic ability, versatility at the second layer at the linebacker position. So a lot of those moving parts for the Virginia defense, something that Tennessee's going to have to be watching. Something Jerry Mack said, they were in a lot of those ball games. Week 3, they lost to Old Dominion, excuse me, by a score of 16-14. The next week, they won against Old Dominion 16-14, a game where they should have just blew them out. They lost to Syracuse by 2 points, 22-20 on the road. Lost to Georgia Tech, or won to Georgia Tech, by a slim margin, 16-9. Lost in 4 overtimes against Miami, 12-14. Lost 31-28 to North Carolina on the road. And so, yeah, there's some truth to that. There's a lot of close scored games when it was all said and done. So this defense really gave the Virginia offense a lot of opportunities to go and kind of make some plays and stay in this football game, or those football games last year. What about the offense? Well, real quick before we get to the offense, we'll go to Amari Thomas, kind of more on, or we'll go to Ramel Keaton. What does the secondary like to do? Kind of what are those coverages they like to play, and what should the Tennessee wide receivers be on the lookout for?
Oh, yeah, I mean, they like to play single high. They like to play man, 3. They like to mix in quarters, like any other defense, but most time they like to play man, so that's good.
So multiple in the back end, like to play man defense. Everybody likes to play man, but they'll mix in quarters, cover 3, cover 2, a little 200, they'll do some pirate action. So the defense experience returns an awful lot. Did have to replace 2 all-ACC cornerbacks from a season ago, and they did that via the transfer portal, getting help from Clemson and getting help from SMU, but very multiple in the back end in terms of what they're going to be coverage-wise. Let's shift over to what Virginia does offensively. Brian Jean-Marie was kind of going into a rant, not a rant, but kind of going into a synopsis about what they should expect and all that, the quarterback position, and how Brennan Armstrong, the starting quarterback from a season ago, or Tony Muskett, the new quarterback from Monmouth, kind of resembles Brennan Armstrong and what he can do in that offense for Virginia and Tony Elliott. Here's Tennessee linebackers coach Brian Jean-Marie.
Yeah, I think it's always a challenge because they're so different than what we face on offense, in a day-to-day period. And obviously they have the new pieces, a new quarterback. I thought the young man they had last year was dynamic as a thrower and a runner. The Muskett kid that they named a starter that transferred from Monmouth, when you watch his film, he has a lot of the same qualities. He's very, very athletic, throws a really, really nice deep ball, and seems to have that savvy and that poise of a really good quarterback. So we know we have our challenges there. And then their slot receiver, the Washington kid that transferred from Northwestern. He shows some explosiveness, good ball skills. So we've had a chance to watch those guys on tape, and they're going to be a challenge, obviously to defend.
So the Washington guy that Brian Jean-Marie was just referencing, the Northwestern wide receiver transfer, he's going to be in the slot. Really good player. In Big Ten competition last year, he had 65 receptions, 697 yards of offense. And again, that was just in conference games. So Malik Washington's going to be a guy that you got to look out for. But sounds like Tony Muskett, very dynamic. He's not much of a runner. He's not very much like Brennan Armstrong was, because Armstrong actually led the team in rushing a season ago with 611 yards on the ground. But Tony Muskett's a guy that'll air it out a little bit. 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, just under 2,000 yards passing a season ago. So a little dynamic, but also this from Amari Thomas, a lot of eye candy. Going to try to beat you to the perimeter, try to outflank you a little bit. We heard that from Aaron Beasley a little bit yesterday, but more on this Virginia offense, kind of what they've shown on tape, a little bit of the spring game for them, and what Tennessee's expecting defensively and trying to stop this Virginia offense.
They're a really good team they really want you to just try to read step with them. They want you to, as far as defensive line-wise, they give you a lot of eye candy, a lot of things that they want you to bite so that way they can do a lot of misdirection things. So that's a lot that we've been practicing, just working on, make sure we play vertical so that way we're not stepping and reading and things like that, so that way we're getting watched as a defensive line. So it's been good just really going in, watching the film from last year and different things like that, and just really being able to just focus on what they do well, which is like really just trying to get you, like I said, just a lot of eye candy, misdirection, things like that. So that's some things that we really just been focusing on.
I think it's a great opportunity for Tennessee's defense. I really do. And again, we're not going to get a true picture. We're not going to know exactly who Virginia is because so much turnover. It's week one. Much like Tennessee, it's going to be far from a finished product. But I think this is a chance for Tennessee's defense to really kind of put not a stamp because the season's just starting, but really kind of, start the season off on the right note, if you will, and kind of show everybody in the country, knowing that you're going to face much better offenses, but kind of showing the country what you're all about defensively. I think it's a great opportunity for this Tennessee defense. A lot of good stuff there from Brian Jean-Marie, Jerry Mack, Ramel Keaton, Amari Thomas, kind of on who Virginia is, what they do defensively, offensively. We'll have more audio and stuff as the week goes on, but I do want to get into Award Wednesday. That is coming up next right here on Locked On Vols, and then to finish off the show, we will go ahead and talk about the linebackers, one of the deeper groups on the Tennessee football team. That and more coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. But hey, I want to tell you about our friends over at Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events, it shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, theater, all near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets, their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped up for all the fun that you're going to have. Things you can look forward to on the Gametime app. Flash deals, last-minute tickets. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, not just sporting events. Images of your seats so you know exactly what you're paying for before you hit purchase. Plus, they have the lowest price guarantee. They have event cancellation protection and job loss protection if something goes wrong between now and then. Truly, they cover all the bases. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has the deals on tickets tickets right up to the day of the event. Game time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference. Not bad there at all. So I encourage you to go download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. It is Wednesday. That means we get to catch up with our buddy Josh Ward for a little Ward Wednesday. And Josh, it's game week. Tennessee takes on Virginia in just a matter of a couple of days.
Yeah, we get to see real football, and I know everybody's ready for it to happen. This has been a fun offseason, fun build-up because of expectations, and Tennessee's going to play for more this season than at least we've expected in conversation the last few years. So everybody's excited and everybody's ready.
What has been the story of the offseason? I mean, again, we talk about literally everything. Defense taking a step, the emergence of wide receivers after, Jalen Hyatt leaves. Obviously, Joe Milton this, Joe Milton that. I mean, Joe Milton's probably the answer. If I could take Joe Milton away, what would be the story of Tennessee's offseason?
I think it's about the program itself. Tennessee being back in a real state to be able to compete for championships. Tennessee being considered among the top programs in college football, because that just hasn't happened in a long time. Tennessee was very close in that 2015 to 2016 range, where the Vols were picked to win the East in 2016, and they were in the top 10 for a few weeks during that season. But it was such a short-lived conversation that it's almost like it never happened. This offseason brought a lot of conversation about Tennessee's program being back among the top, and there is more to be accomplished in trying to win championships. But I think it's the stabilization of the program with leadership, from Danny White as the AD to hiring Josh Heupel as the head coach, but then what Tennessee can truly build off last season.
You look at Virginia, and not a very good offense last year. Of course, had they cut their season short due to the tragedy up there that happened last November, and it's good to see them back out on the field. But not a very good offense. A lot of turnover on that offense. What are you expecting on Saturday for Tennessee and Virginia?
I think Tennessee is going to win with ease, and I think Tennessee will have a really good chance to build a lead early and then kind of control the game how it wants to from there. I'd be surprised if Virginia is able to find much offensive success with Tony Muskett coming in to take over at quarterback. I doubt that Virginia will be able to run the football with much success. If Tennessee is able to score early and Virginia is in a position where pretty soon it realizes we're going to have to throw the ball to find success, there might be a drive or two that could happen over 4 quarters. But, Eric, I'd just be really surprised if where Virginia is offensively, that it can come anywhere close to keeping up with Tennessee. And it's a season opener. It is a new offense with Joe Milton taking over and some changes on the offensive line and no Cooper Mays. So I'm not saying everything is going to be perfect, easy right away for Tennessee. There might be some drives where they make some mistakes. It's a 3 or 4 and out, and the defense gets another chance. But over 4 quarters, I think Tennessee is going to score a ton of points, and I don't think Virginia will score many at all.
In saying that, though, that FanDuel line here at the beginning of the week here at the middle of the week, Tennessee 27.5-point favorites. Are you confident in Tennessee that much in week 1 with all the new pieces on offense to take the Vols?
It's a huge number, which does make me nervous when you talk about fourth quarter play, what can happen where you have backups in, and Tennessee could be up 44-10. And then all of a sudden Virginia has a late score among players that won't play a huge role as the season goes along and you don't cover the line. But I would still, picking aside, pick Tennessee. My score prediction, I haven't come up with anything official, but it will have Tennessee winning by 28 plus. I can go ahead and promise you that. So, I think that line is about right, and it's a statement again to Tennessee. Virginia is a bottom of the ACC team. It'll maybe be the worst team in the conference this season, but by comparison, Tennessee is a bigger favorite against Virginia than Kentucky is against Ball State. USC beat San Jose State by 28 and was a 31-point favorite in that game. That's close to the line for Tennessee against an ACC team. that tells you something about Tennessee and also Virginia.
So things you do have locked in, because again, we're just days away from the start of the kickoff, start of the football season. What's that Tennessee record? Who's those losses come to, and why? Where do you have Tennessee after the Thanksgiving regular season finale, game?
9-3 is my record prediction for Tennessee. My first statement on who the losses are against were Alabama, Georgia, and one of Florida, South Carolina, Texas A&M, or Kentucky.
That's such a cop-out, man. You got to pick one.
Exactly. I know that I'm
said
not
the same. I literally said the same thing.
Yeah,
so.
I know I'm not allowed to do it. So to pick one, I said, well, Texas A&M is probably the most likely game that I would choose. Although schedule-wise, we've talked on this show, I think, about how that does set up favorably for Tennessee. The Vols get 2 weeks to prepare for A&M, while A&M plays Alabama the week before. Kentucky is the one where the schedule flip is against Tennessee. Tennessee plays at Alabama, while Kentucky is off, getting ready to host Tennessee. And I don't think Florida is going to be a very good SEC team, but it is a road game, first SEC game, first real test of the season at night, and we don't know Cooper May's status for that game yet. So Florida cannot just be marked off immediately as an easy win. The South Carolina game last season proves that. But 9-3 is where I am. I also think all 12 games individually are winnable, and that includes the Georgia game. So Tennessee can for sure do better than 9-3. The odds makers have the line at 9.5, with 9 the juiced side, so the more likely side. But 10-2 is very much on the table. 11-1, I guess, is possible. That's just, you have to have a lot go your way to go 11-1 when Alabama and Georgia are both on the schedule.
What individual things are you looking for on Saturday? I mentioned on the podcast yesterday that I think this would be a great opportunity for the defense to kind of put on a show. I mean, I know it's week one and everything, but 4 new offensive linemen for Virginia, new quarterback, top 4 receivers from last year are gone. There's some opportunity there, and wouldn't it be great against, and sure, it's not a group of 5 or anything, it's a Power 5 program, but not a very good one, for your defense to go out there and shine a little bit in week one. So I'm going to be looking for the defense and, of course, the offensive line rotation, because that just fascinates me. What are some of the things you're going to be looking for on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm a little intrigued by the running back rotation early in the game, to see Jalen Wright, Jabari Small usage for those guys, because those are your top 2 players. Totally agree on the offensive line. But my initial reaction was the defensive side as well. The guys on the edge, what kind of pressure can they get? You want to see them have success. You want to see the defensive line have really good success overall, considering their potential, I think, with an Omar Norman-Lott coming in and some of the younger guys on the edge that we've talked about, and the overall rotation of players that they have. And then I would say some playmaking behind them, the linebackers and members of the secondary making plays, because we can spend as much time as we want during the summer months and during August talking about they have all these guys in the secondary and they have more players to compete against one another. They still have to go out and make plays, right? And they have to show that they are going to be an improved unit, which I think there's a very good chance. But if the defense shows signs of problem against Virginia, well, then that could set up concern. If they were able to go make some plays, that's something to build on 2 weeks later when you play Florida and then everybody else after that.
All right, this is our last Ward Wednesday before the start of the regular season, so tell us something that we can look back on in November and say, Josh Ward said before the season. Tell us something that we don't know right now that's going to happen.
Oh, that's good. Actually, can I do this with you? So I have discovered recently that I'm a bit of a hypocrite, which is probably not the first time, but here's why.
Okay.
So the first week of the year, first week of January, on Josh and Swain, we had to make a bold prediction for Tennessee sports in 2023. And do you know what my bold prediction was that week? That Tennessee would beat Georgia in football this year. But you heard my record prediction just a few minutes ago during the segment.
Yeah,
and you asked me to pick my losses, and Georgia was one of them. So am I correct? Am I a hypocrite? Should I go back to saying they're going to beat Georgia? Because there's also very little to be lost, right? Like if Tennessee doesn't win that game, I don't think anybody's going to say, well, Josh Ward picked him. But if Tennessee wins, then we can replay this segment and say, Josh picked Tennessee to beat Georgia way back before the season began.
It's pretty hypocritical, yes. But
okay.
you reserve the right to be bold, especially like on January 1st. So I don't think anybody's going to hold that against you. And you're right. Like, it's like, what does Josh Ward have to lose if he says Tennessee's going to beat Georgia?
Yeah, also,
if Tennessee loses to Georgia, they're not going to be like, God, what an idiot. I mean, Georgia's the best team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, because on the flip side, last year, I did pick Tennessee to go 8-4, and they did much better than I expected. But at the same time, we had to come up with who are the 4 losses, and one of them was South Carolina. And everybody at the time said, I'm going to lose to South Carolina. Didn't you see last year's game? So I actually got that right. My record prediction was still way off. So I could say 9-3, and they beat Georgia. How about that one? That would be a bold prediction. But that's not going to help you. I think at the end of the season, we're going to look back and say Cameron Seldon ended up making a number of big plays for Tennessee on the offensive side. The running back position starts with Jalen Wright and Jabari Small, the 2 older guys, but injury can happen. But I also think that Seldon has so much ability and has impressed coaches that at some point he will impress on special teams and or the offense, and we'll be talking about Seldon having a nice freshman year and something to build on heading into next year.
He is Josh Ward, the co-host of Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal, noon to 3 weekdays on The Sports Animal. Josh, you got the Josh and Swain newsletter coming out 8:45 on Friday morning. What else you got coming up the rest of the week?
Yep, free to subscribe to the newsletter. Appreciate everybody that has done so just once a week into your inbox. And then other than that, it's mostly all football, talking about what's going to happen on Saturday with a little recruiting mixed in, a little basketball. So, season's here. Everybody is ready, just like you and everybody listening.
Appreciate it as always, Josh. Thanks so much.
You got it. Thanks, Eric.
All right, when we come back, segment number 3 of a Wednesday show, we'll take a look at the linebackers position previews right here on Locked On Vols. Great stuff there from Josh Ward, as always, every single Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols. You everydayers know all about that. All right, for a final segment here on today's show, let's get back into our position previews and take a look at the linebackers. One of my favorite positions on this football team. I think the linebackers are going to be a huge reason why Tennessee takes a major step on defense in 2023. Again, Tennessee took a step on defense in 2022, and I think because of the front 7 and these linebackers in particular, Tennessee's going to take a massive step again in 2023. Now, before we get into, kind of what makes this room a little bit, I do want to say, think back to what that room's been the last couple of years. All right, you have had, as I put my phone back down on that iPad charger, as I mentioned earlier this week, sometimes it picks up, sometimes it doesn't. You had some good ball players in that room. Jeremy Banks was a tremendously productive linebacker at times. He had over 100 tackles in 2021. He got better. He was one of Tennessee's best players, no doubt about it, on the defensive side of the football. His production slacked a little bit in 2022, but he was still a good player. Played really well in some big-time games against Alabama. Juwan Mitchell, never really worked out here at Tennessee. Missed some games due to injury, missed some games due to academics. Was never as productive as you'd want him to be, but he was still very much in the fold each of the last 2 years. I'm not here on this podcast to put down, college age students or, to talk bad about them, but, those 2 guys were a lot to handle. I think we all can agree, or we where I'm coming from here. They were very much hard to handle. They were very much hard to manage. And so for that linebacker room, the last couple of years to be, as productive, and for Tennessee to win as many games as they did last year, with just so much chaos in that linebacker room, I think it speaks volumes of what Brian John Marie is as a coach. I think the world of him as a coach. I think he's a really good coach. And so you remove some of those personalities, if you will, out of that room. A lot of production. You're going to miss that production, don't get me wrong, but you remove some of those personalities out of those rooms. And Aaron Beasley is a, lead by example type guy. You bring in Keenan Peely, who's 25 and married and been in college for a decade, who can rent a car. He's more reserved as well, but leads by example type guy. You have an influx of young linebackers in that room, a freshman and sophomore. The dynamic in that room is taking a 180-degree turn. It is completely different, and I think it can be in a good way. Now, are any of those guys physically as gifted as Jeremy Banks was? No. But can those guys be better linebackers than Jeremy Banks? And more importantly, can that group be a better linebacker group than Tennessee's had each of the past 2 seasons? Absolutely, in my opinion. So, again, Jeremy Banks and Juwan Mitchell, did a lot of good things here at Tennessee on the field. At least Jeremy Banks did. And very productive players. But I think this group has grown significantly this offseason and done a really, really nice job. So, we'll see exactly what it looks like on the field, but it all starts with those two guys I just mentioned there. Aaron Beasley, who, had his own off-the-field struggles earlier in his career, but has, come back and put his head down and worked and really been a model teammate and somebody to look after and somebody to watch it just go to work. It's been fun to watch his transformation over the course of his Tennessee career, coming in as an athlete, safety, running back, linebacker, running back, safety again, and then settling in there at linebacker, being thrust into action in 2021 when it was Jeremy Banks, Aaron Beasley, and Solon Page. Juwan Mitchell was out for the season with an injury, and those are the three linebackers that played. He had to grow up in a hurry, started to figure some things out towards the end of the year, and then in 2022, it was him, Juwan Mitchell, and Jeremy Banks as kind of the three starters, if you will. He was the best one. And he really performed well at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season in the Orange Bowl, if you remember. Of course you do. So Aaron Beasley's been fun to watch. He's a great kid to talk to, on the side, outside of practice or, after a media appearance or whatever. He's a really, really cool guy to talk to. And then Keenan Peely, I think, has been the star of camp, meaning the coaching staff wanted him for this reason. They wanted experience. They wanted a technically sound linebacker. They wanted a guy who could be ready to play right now. So that's why they went out and got him. But I think what they've seen in Keenan Peely over fall camp has been, he's been so much better than what they thought. I don't think they thought he sucked, but he's been so much better. And so I'm intrigued really to watch him play as well. So Tennessee starts with those two guys, the inside, a Will linebacker and Mike linebacker, in really, really good shape. And then this is where we drop back to some of this youth, okay? So you have those two veterans. And then the number one backup, in my opinion, is going to be freshman Aaron Carter. Again, there's a lot to like about Aaron Carter. By the way, the Tennessee roster has Aaron Beasley at 230 pounds. That's hilarious. Aaron Carter, 6'1", 227 pounds, true freshman from Smyrna, Tennessee. Boy, he looks the part, and it sounds like he's had an excellent, excellent fall camp. Still a lot to learn. Still going to be a learning curve. He's going to make mistakes, okay? Everybody has those days. He's going to make mistakes, big time. That's just part of it, right? No one's perfect that plays football. But he is going to be a really good linebacker here at Tennessee. So he's going to be out there, in my opinion, the first substitute, if you will. Elijah Herring, now a sophomore. He had a little bit of role as a true freshman last year. He's continuing to grow and get bigger. 6'3", 238 is he listed on the roster. He had to go through some growing pains a lot during this offseason over the spring practice period and fall camp a little bit. But he's a guy that Tennessee can definitely rely on. Who else? Well, you have Caleb Perry, who's another one of those sophomores. He shined on special teams a season ago. He was never really into the fold at linebacker. I think he's got a lot to learn still, but I think he's grown enough to where Tennessee could put him in there if they need to. But I think he's last in the pecking order because I think Jeremiah Thielander, a fellow freshman, is another guy that could get some looks before even Caleb Perry. Jeremiah Thielander, 6'2", 230 pounds. I do the practice observations for VolQuest.com when looking at Tennessee's practice, and I said a couple of times these freshman linebackers look like $1 million. Jeremiah Thielander benefited so much from a collegiate strength and conditioning program when he got here in January. He looks fluid. He's got good feet. The coaches can't seem to say enough nice things about him. I just mentioned 6 linebackers there, guys. Actually, let's see, 2, 4. Yeah, I just mentioned 6 linebackers there that I think Tennessee can play. Really 5 that you feel really good about, or 4 that you feel really good about. I think you can play 5 and play 6 if you need to. So how big is that linebacker rotation? Regardless, it is a bigger rotation. You have more options, and I think it's just going to benefit Tennessee much, 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 much greatly down the line here this season. So linebackers a strength, too. They're starting to look like an SEC linebacker room. Look at this depth chart here. I mean, let's see here. Aaron Beasley, 220, 230. So it says on the roster. Caleb Perry, 225. Aaron Carter, 227. Keenan Peely, 240, but he moves well. Elijah Herring, 238. Jeremiah Thielander, 228. I mean, these guys are, eating cornbread. I mean, they're truly benefiting from that collegiate strength and conditioning program, whereas back in 2021, that room just looked completely different. So I like this linebacker room an awful lot. I'm intrigued to see how this rotation is come Saturday and how it looks to come Austin Peay. And, of course, you're getting ready for Florida. So that is another thing that I'm looking forward to with Tennessee and Virginia that is coming up on Saturday. That's a look at the linebackers. We will conclude our position previews by taking a look at the defensive backs. A lot to discuss. Who's going to play where? What's that rotation look like? We'll break down the defensive backfield with our position previews and how they fared in fall camp. That's coming up on tomorrow's show, along with Boogie Bentley of Talkin' Vols. Guys, appreciate it as always. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Thanks so much for subscribing to us on YouTube. We had a huge jump in the YouTube numbers, subscriptions. Can't thank you enough. Following, subscribing wherever you find your podcast, where you listen to your podcast. We're there. That's Locked On Vols. Thank you for rating me 5 stars and leaving me a positive review on Apple Podcasts. All that stuff helps us get this show out in front of more Tennessee fans. Just helps the show grow, and it's all thanks to you everydayers. Appreciate you guys as always. We'll be back for a fun show coming up on Thursday. This is Locked On Vols.